Well, good morning. So great to be here with you. I'd like to start with a phrase that we say a lot here in the church, the phrase, believing in Jesus. Okay? So here's a question. When you hear the phrase, believing in Jesus, what comes to your mind? Okay? When you hear the phrase, what comes to your mind? Here's one way to think about it. Believing Jesus is a decision. Believing Jesus is a decision. The reason any of us can say, I believe in Jesus, is because at some point in our lives that we made that decision to follow Jesus. Now, even if you grew up going to church your whole life, there was still a moment, a time in your life when you said, yes, I believe Jesus. And I decided to follow him. And that was a decision that who made? You made. So for me, that moment came when I was 13 years old. It was during a Friday youth meeting. And at the end of the service, while everyone was praying, and as I was praying, God showed up. And I encountered God. And that night, I made a decision to believe and to follow him for the rest of my life. But I'll be honest with you, following Jesus hasn't always been easy. There were times in my life that I had to ask myself, because I'm struggling with this. I asked, do I really believe Jesus? Do I really believe that the Bible is true? What if it's not? What if all the truths that I've learned from the church is not true? What if it's not? I wrestle with that. But what did I do? I kept going. I kept believing even when I wasn't 100% sure. And what happened? In the middle of my doubts in my head about Jesus and about following Jesus, about the Bible and everything, God showed up again and again. And he strengthened my faith. And he gave me confirmation after confirmation that he is real. And I've come to this truth. I began to see this truth. And that was this. The Christian walk, the journey with Jesus, may at times be confusing, even painful at times. But it is always, always beautiful. There is a book called The Critical Journey by these two authors, Janet Hagberg and Robert Gulick. And in this book, they talk about the 6 primary stages of our spiritual journey. And the idea is simple. If you look at our life with God, from the start to finish, we can see it unfolds in these 6 primary ways. So today what I want to do is I want to introduce that to you. I want to share that with you, what are these 6 stages are, and I want to help you understand this question. What does the journey of following Jesus look like? And as we walk through them, I want to encourage you to do 2 things. Number 1, I want you to try to identify what stage you're in out of these 6 stages, right? What is the stage that you're in? Number 2, second, ask yourself, what is God doing in my life in terms of these stages here? Okay? And what is it something, if there's anything that God is speaking to you as you're listening, pay attention to that. All right? So, with that, let's get into the first stage here. Here's stage number 1. Recognition of God. Recognition of God. So this is where it all begins. All right? This journey, this is where it all begins. At this stage, you're beginning to explore Christianity. Okay? You start asking questions like, is God real? Is it real? Can I trust the Bible? Can I really give my life to Jesus? Okay? And slowly, things start to click. You notice God's presence, not just at church, but in the people around you in your life. You hear stories and messages of how other people come to know and experience God, and things start to make sense. I see it. Well, you're not a Christian yet. You're not following Jesus yet, but you're moving closer and closer and closer, and you're noticing God. You're recognizing God. And this stage is called the recognition of God. Now, what happens after you become a Christian? Okay? What happens after you put your faith and trust in Jesus? This is the next stage, stage 2. The life of discipleship begins in your life. The life of discipleship begins in your life. Now, at this stage, you're learning more about God, you're learning more about the Bible, and learning more about the church and what it means to live as a Christian. Okay? Maybe you're taking a class like Living Life, or learning how to pray every night before bed, or you're getting plugged in to a community group, and you start learning how to do life with other believers. And I would say this stage is also called the growing stage. You as a believer, you as a Christian, this is a stage where you're growing, you're soaking in, you're learning. People start noticing something different about you. Wow, what's happening? You're changed, you look different. What's going on? And you go, yep, I met Jesus, I encountered God, and it's the best thing ever. And I'm growing, I'm learning about God. It's wonderful. And then in your heart, you're thinking, is this what following Jesus is going to feel like for the rest of my life? Man, this is awesome. This is amazing. Following Jesus is great. And that excitement, right? That joy and the growth that you're experiencing, well, that's what moves you to the next stage of this journey. Stage 3, the productive life. Productive life. Jesus becomes so important to you. There's nothing more important to you in your life than Jesus and what it means to learn to follow Jesus. You might even say that without Jesus, you find no meaning in your life. That's how much he means to you. And one day, you hear a message about serving, right? What it means to make disciples, what it means to live your life on mission for God's glory. You hear these things. What it means to get plugged into church and start serving the church. And there's a fire in your bones. You're excited. I'm living my life for Jesus for the rest of my life. So you're giving your life away, making sacrifices for God and for his glory. And you're all in. So you begin to prioritize your life. And you start serving God. You start serving church. You're leading a men's ministry. You're leading a women's ministry. You're volunteering at a children's ministry. You're giving your finances above and beyond. And you're making all kinds of sacrifices wherever and whenever the church has a need. You're there. You're the first one there. But not only that, you're constantly looking for opportunities to serve even outside the four walls of the church. You're helping out with the homeless ministry. You're helping out with the foster care system. You're helping out by volunteering at a local elementary school. Because your goal is to live a productive life for God. Man, you're on fire. And that's stage 3. Just a side note. This is where many people, many Christians, think where the Christian life ends. It ends at stage 3. They believe that knowing God, getting discipled, growing in faith, and living a productive life for God is all there is to it. And that's why stage 3 is often where church teachings and ministries stop. But the truth is, there's still more. There's still more. There are more stages where God is moving his people through. Again, we're just only at stage 3. Now, somewhere along the way, as you're living in the stage 3, fire for God, you suddenly find yourself in a strange and unexpected place. And something hits you out of nowhere, and suddenly everything feels different. What's that place called? It's called the wall. And this is a critical moment in your spiritual journey when you hit the wall. This is a space in your journey where things stop working for one reason or another, and you feel stuck, stagnant. You don't feel anything, numb, indifferent. Spiritually speaking, you're on a road, but you're driving on a road with the flat tires. That's how it feels. You keep going, you're living a Christian life, but it's very bumpy. It's bumpy. Now, how do you know that you are hitting the wall? Well, let me give you 3 markers that the book talks about. They all start with the letter D. You're feeling, first, defeated. You're feeling discouraged, and you're feeling distance. You're hitting the wall. Now, during this stage of spiritual journey, if you make it through, which means, sadly, not everyone will make it through. But if you do, you are going to realize something. And this is huge. I want you to hear this. This is huge. You are going to realize this. You're going to realize how much of what you thought was living for God, was actually fueled by your own desires, your own ego, your own pride, and your own self-righteousness. And in many ways, God had become a means to your own end rather than the center of your life. You come to realize that in a deeper and profound way. Now, once you recognize this, how do you move forward? How do you break through the wall and move to the next stage? And the answer is one word. You just have to remember this one word: surrender. White flag. You're waving a white flag. God, I'm done. I'm done trying. I'm done trying. Listen, without surrender, you cannot pass beyond the wall. You're stuck in stage 3. I'm sorry, this is just how this works. You'll be stuck in the wall until you learn the lesson of letting go and trusting God. Do you know that our will is made to surrender to God? Our will is made to surrender to God. No matter how strong or how determined we think we are, our own willpower will run out. But what happens when we place our will into God's hands? His power will carry us all the way through the end. So, how do you know that you're coming out of the wall? It's when you truly understand the meaning of this prayer: Thy will be done. Thy will be done. That prayer is no longer just a prayer that you say in your head. This becomes the prayer and the way you live, breathe, and make every choice and decision in your life. Thy will be done. Not my will, but yours will be done in my life. In other words, here's what you come to realize. You come to realize you are no longer living your life for God. You're living your life with God. Huge difference. Living your life for God. No. I'm living my life with God. You're beginning to see that, what that means to live with God. Why your relationship with God is the most important part of this journey. And now you see why investing your time and your energy into cultivating and growing this relationship is your top priority. It's not for God, it's with God. Now, then what comes after the wall? The next stage is called the journey inward. Journey inward. Now, at this stage, you're beginning to discover in a real personal way that Jesus is enough for me. Sure, you believe that back in stage 2. Yes, Jesus is enough for me. Yes, I believe that. Stage 3, yes, I believe that Jesus is enough for me. Yes. But now, after coming out of the wall, after your prayer is, that will be done in my life, and that is your life, and that is you breathe and live, it carries a whole new meaning. You begin to see a different way to live your life. And this stage is where personal healing and true transformation and freedom start to take root in your life. You now have a margin. The margin that you didn't have. Now you have a margin in your life. You have a room in your heart now where you can now revisit the painful memories of hurt in your life. And you now have the strength to confront and bring resolution in the grace and mercy of God. You begin to forgive those who hurt you. You even start thinking about that. How can I forgive this person who hurt me? And you now have a courage to ask for forgiveness to those you hurt. And through it all, your love for Jesus is growing like crazy. Because you now understand the depth in which He loves you. He forgives you. And He stays faithful to you through your experience of forgiving and receiving forgiveness. And this is the stage where you taste real transformation, where personal healing happens and freedom becomes your new reality. And if I could just add one more thing, I would say this. I want all of you guys to look at that banner over here. Transforming lives towards wholeness in Christ. What is this? This is our church mission statement. Transforming lives towards wholeness in Christ. The stage 4 and 5 and stage 6 that I'm going to share with you. It's all about that. It's all about that. This is exactly what this journey is about. This is where we as a church want to walk with you and help you move through stage 4 to inner journey, to outer journey, and become, we'll get there, stage 6, become a person of love. But this can only experience coming through the wall, to surrender your life to God. Okay, continue here. Stage 5. Stage 5 is called the journey outward. Okay? Your spiritual journey continues as you learn to live, serve, and love God and love others with the heart centered on God's love. Not on your effort to love others, but on God's love. Okay? You desire to live as Christ lived. You want to do ministry like the way He did. You are constantly relying on the strength and power that comes from God, not your own. You're learning to depend on Christ in you, through you, and bring glory to Him. Now, Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. Famous passage. Philippians 1:21. This starts to make sense. This starts to make sense. For to me, this is Paul speaking, for to me, to live my life is for Christ, right? But also that die is gain. And during this stage, you understand this. Die is gain. Begins to make sense. I get it. Now I can see why Paul said that. Die is gain. In other words, your perception of life and death takes on a new meaning. Your attitude and your posture towards your life and how you relate to people in your life changes. And this is a stage. This is a stage where you are preparing yourself to leave your home, where you find your comfort, security, and the earthly attachments. And you prepare to die for a new birth. Not a literal physical death I'm talking about, okay? I'm talking about spiritual sense of death. That is, you're coming to the end of yourself. You're coming to the end of yourself. And that's what this stage is all about, the journey outward. And this takes us to the last stage, stage 6, life of love. Now, you're in union with God. You are one with God. The branch that is abide by the tree is no longer just a branch, it's a tree. The sponge in the middle of the ocean is no longer just a sponge, it's an ocean. And in the same way, the life that is a union with God is no longer just a life, but it's a life of love. Because God is love. God is love. And when we become one with God, then we become love. Makes sense, right? We become love. 1 Corinthians 13 tells us what love is. And this is the person that you become at this stage. I become at this stage. So imagine you're at this stage. I am patient. I am kind. I don't envy. I don't boast. I'm not proud. I don't dishonor others. I'm not self-seeking. I don't get easily angered. I keep no record of wrongs. I don't delight in evil, but I rejoice with the truth. I protect, I trust, I hope, and I always persevere. You become that person. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I want that. I want to be a person of love. I want to be in stage 6, but I know that I'm not there yet. I'm far from that. I have so many more lessons that I have to learn. And I have so many areas in my life that I need to grow in my walk with God. But I say this. One thing that I do know for sure, because it's my desire, and that is I want to grow. I want to get to stage 6. That is my desire, and that is my goal in my life. Now, what about you? As a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, is this a desire in you? Do you want to grow? Do you want to reach stage 6 where you become the person of love? Do you want to live your life to reflect God's love wherever you are? Do you want that? Let me end with this. Remember what I said in the beginning? I said, believing Jesus is what? A decision, right? Believing Jesus is a decision. Well, here's something else that you need to know, that I want to tell you. That surrendering your will to God is also a decision. This will not happen if you just sit back and wait. Because no one is going to make that decision for you. Listen, not even God. Not even God. God will not do that for you. He's not going to force you to submit your will and surrender your will to Him. He's not going to do that. He's not going to make you surrender your will to Him. He will not. Who has to do it? You have to do it. This is your journey This is your life. And don't forget this. This is your surrender. This is your surrender. So here's my encouragement to you. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't put it off thinking, I will do it when timing feels right. Or I'm too busy right now, I'll do it later. Or I will surrender when God leaves me with no other choices. Then I'll do it. No. The time is now. The time is now. There are things in your life, areas in your life, people in your life, in your circumstances right now, where God is asking you to surrender it all to Him. I know you have one, at least one. And my encouragement to you is that there's no other person but you who can make that decision to surrender it to God. So today, I ask you, I invite you to make that decision to surrender that part of your life to God. So here's what I want to do. I want us to spend some time in prayer. So if you can bow your head and just close your eyes at this time. And I want to spend some time in reflection, and I want you to respond to this question. Here's the question. Where am I holding back? What part of my life am I still trying to control? And what do I need to surrender to God? I want you to spend some time identifying what that is. And I want to invite you to speak a prayer of surrender. Say something like, God, I surrender this part of my life to you because I trust you, because I know that you care for me. So I surrender this part of my life to you. So let's take a few moments just in silence, just you and God. Reflect and respond. Now we're going to transition into a time of communion. I want you to continue to reflect and hear these words.